Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our broadcast, our live webinar with immigration lawyer Afia Yunus. We are happy that you have joined us. This is a presentation from ICNA Council for Social Justice in partnership with Yunus Law. Afia Yunus is an immigration lawyer. She's done a few webinars with us on the Muslim ban over the past few months, and we've had a lot of benefit through her knowledge and understanding of the law and how it works and what it entails and means for the Muslims in America. And today she will, as all of you know, the Trump administration has been doing a lot. And it actually ran on a campaign of Islamophobia, and it's done a lot of work against Muslims. And they've been always trying to find a new way to attack the Muslim community. So she's been very helpful through her dialogue with us and through her webinars. So we encourage you to visit her website at www.yunuslaw.com. Please check her out. If you need any of her services, please also get in contact with her. She's a great resource. So I'm going to take it. She's going to take it from here, and she will discuss all of your questions. She had received all your questions, so as she promised last week, she will answer those questions. She had a few more questions come in this week as well. She will answer all those questions that she received via email through our form online at the end of the webinar. So we hope you enjoy it, and please afterwards always make sure to share it with your family and friends and let them know as well, so they can also benefit from the knowledge that she's going to give us today, inshallah. Okay, Afia Yunus, yeah, just take it from here.
Okay, thank you so much, Ramiz. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and of course to ICNA Council for Social Justice. For those of you who don't know, the Islamic Circle of North America has a wonderful arm called the Council for Social Justice. They do amazing, amazing work. Please get involved, donate, whatever you can do to support them. As we know, the administration, like Ramiz said, has kind of ran on a campaign of Islamophobia. And what these Muslim bans or travel bans are essentially is a basically culmination of the very long assault on the Muslim community. And so it's very important that we know exactly what is in these executive orders and presidential proclamations, so that number one, we're knowledgeable and we can respond, and number two, so we can prepare for what else is to come. As we know by now, it's been about 10 months in this administration. There's always more to come. So just to jump right in, as most of you are aware, hopefully on September 24th of this year, we received the third order from the president. Now, just to note a little bit of a nuance, this third one was a proclamation as opposed to an executive order. But for all intents and purposes, it's basically the same thing. So I'm just going to call it the proclamation, but it's the same thing as an executive order for our purposes. Now, of course, a little bit of background. The first one was initiated in January, and then we had the second one in March, and now this is the third one. We did have a lot of legal challenges to the Muslim Ban 1 and Muslim Ban 2, and so that's kind of why we're here today with Muslim Ban 3. What happened was, the second Muslim ban was supposed to be expiring around the time that we got this third one. A certain portion of it was supposed to be expiring. So now what we see is, instead of allowing the 90-day Muslim ban from Muslim Ban 2.0 from expiring, President Trump basically initiated this third one. So unfortunately, instead of the second one lapsing, we're now in an even worse situation. And I'll go into why I, in my personal opinion, feel that this one is the worst of the three. Now, really quick, the title is Enhancing Vetting Capabilities and Processes for Detecting Attempted Entry into the U.S. by Terrorists or Other Public Safety Threats. Basically, a fancy title for how do we keep people out of the United States. very notably, I just want to say there's no indication that a ban on an entire class of individuals will enhance or improve safety. There's no studies, there's no statistics from the Department of State or the Department of Homeland Security or any other agency, nonprofit or otherwise, that would show that this would improve safety. Instead, it's creating these broad, sweeping bans of all individuals based solely on their race, based solely on where they come from. And as we know, and I'll go through, most of these countries are Muslim majority countries. So to begin, the countries that are subject to the ban, and I'll go, I'm going to go very slowly, step by step, so that you can follow me with this. I know it's a lot of legal language, but I'll try my best. The 3 new countries on Muslim Ban 3.0 are Chad, North Korea, and Venezuela. Now, what I want to point out, though, is each country has very specific people that are banned, okay? So who's banned in Chad? The country of Chad, President Trump has banned all immigrants and all tourists, okay? So a little bit of language. Immigrants, for purposes of immigration law, means people who are coming here to stay permanently, okay? So that's opposed to somebody who's coming on a student visa or who's coming on a tourist visa, or you may have heard the word H-1B. So these are work visas. These are just to come to the United States temporarily. So unfortunately, all people from Chad who are intending to come here permanently, meaning on a green card, are banned. And all people coming on a tourist visa are also banned. North Korea is one of the ones where now catch this, all individuals are banned. So that's the entry of immigrants and non-immigrants. And non-immigrants here meaning people who want to come here temporarily. That's tourist visa holders, student visa holders, anyone wanting to come here to either work or study or visit temporarily. So basically everybody is banned from North Korea. From Venezuela, we have, it's an interesting one. A lot of the legal immigration community is still looking into this, is basically a suspension of the entry of only certain government officials and their families. So I can imagine very few individuals would be affected by this. And I'll go into that later, put a pin in that one. Now the countries that were impacted by the earlier bans and now unfortunately are subjected to even worse of a ban are Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and Iraq. And I'm going to break these down. Iran, suspending the entry of all immigrants, that's anyone who wants to come on a green card, and all non-immigrants, anyone who wants to come temporarily, except students and exchange visitors. And now that's vocational students as well. So that's non-immigrant visas classified as F, as in Frank, M or J visas are allowed. But they're subjected to enhanced scrutiny. What that means, we still don't know. And we will only be able to tell through the practice of this law to see, what kind of individuals are allowed and which ones are not. For the country of Libya, it's similar to Chad in that all immigrants, people who want to come on green cards, and tourists are being banned. For the country of Somalia, the entry, again, and banning the entry of all immigrants, anyone who wants to come here permanently, and enhanced screening for all non-immigrants. So fortunately, people who want to come here on a tourist or student visa from Somalia can, but they'll be subjected to enhanced scrutiny. Now for Syria, this is the worst situation because it's a permanent ban on the entry of all immigrants and non-immigrants from Syria. What does this mean? This basically means anyone who wants to come who's a Syrian national applying on their Syrian passport on any type of visa, is not going to be allowed to enter the United States. The country of Yemen is the same as Libya, and it's the same as Chad. So Yemenis, it's going to be suspending the entry of all immigrants and all tourists. And finally, the country of Iraq, all visa applicants will be subjected to enhanced visa screening. Now, if you may have noticed, the country of Sudan was thankfully removed from Muslim Ban 3.0. But for now, so we hope that that stays that way, and we hope that this can set a precedent for more countries being removed. Unfortunately, the proclamation did say that it's leaving open the possibility of adding additional countries. So we'll just have to wait and see. Excuse me. So what's the effective date for this ban? Even though it was signed on September 24th, which just happens to be my birthday, it was a nice little birthday present for me on Sunday. But anyways, the effective date is October 18th. So where are we now? We're on October 9th. So we have about 9 days to buckle down and try to get this thing overturned somehow. But yeah, so but there's a little bit of a nuance here as well. So people who were subjected to Muslim Ban 2.0, if you remember, if you were able to show that you had a bona fide relationship with a person in the United States or an organization in the United States, then the Supreme Court held that those people could be accepted from Muslim Ban 2.0. So where we are on September 24th is that individuals who do not have a bona fide relationship with a person or organization in the United States and are subjected to Muslim Ban 2.0, then this ban goes into effect on September 24th. I know that's very confusing. So again, and I'll repeat this over and over again, if you feel that this may apply to you and you really don't know, feel free to either contact ICNA CSJ or contact myself, Afia Yunus, and I can flesh it out for you. But the entire proclamation, the entire ban goes into effect on October 18th at 12:01 a.m. Okay, so keep that date in mind, because I know I got a lot of questions about how to get involved and how to do some resistance action. So it's important to remember that date. Now, what are the exemptions to the ban? Key exemption, because I know I got tons of questions on this. If you are a U.S. citizen or you are a lawful permanent resident of the United States, meaning you have a green card, then you are exempt from this ban. So we all know that Muslim Ban 1.0 was a hot mess and a lot of green card holders were being stopped and prevented from entry. But thankfully, he got it semi-right the third time. So in this ban, if you are a green card holder, U.S. citizen, you're exempted. Another key exemption is for dual citizens. So if you happen to be a citizen of Yemen, for example, and also a citizen of a non-ban country such as Pakistan or England or whatever, any other country in the world that's not subjected to the ban, then you are exempted from the ban. The only requirement is that when you apply for the visa, you apply using the non-ban country passport, and that you enter the United States using the non-ban country passport. And finally, those who were granted asylum or were already admitted as a refugee, or anyone who was already granted withholding of removal before the effective date, so before October 18th, I said? Yeah, October 18th. Those individuals are exempt. These are terms of art. You won't know about it unless it's something that applies to you. So if it does, again, feel free to contact us and I can flesh that out for you. Again, people who are granted asylum, admitted as a refugee, or granted withholding of removal. And finally, a very clear exemption is anyone who was in the United States already, or anyone who had already been issued a visa as of the effective date. That's a very, very key component of the ban. I know I'm going to get tons of questions. What if I already had a visa? Is the visa going to be revoked? Is the visa going to be, taken out of my passport? If you already had a visa in your passport issued before the effective date, again, before October 18th, that visa is valid and you can travel on that visa. It will not be revoked. Now, a lot of people ask, oh man, this applies to me. Are there any waivers available? And after Muslim Ban 2.0, I've been working a lot with clients from Libya and some of the banned countries on applying for these waivers. So fortunately, in Muslim Ban 3.0, we do have waivers available. It hasn't even gone into effect yet, so we don't know how much they will be granted, but they are there on a case-by-case basis. So just to give you an idea of some of the criteria for a waiver, if you already had some type of U.S. connection, you may be eligible for a waiver. If you've already been employed in the United States, especially if you are employed by the U.S. government, then you may be eligible for a waiver. If you're a young child or an adoptee, if you have some type of significant business or professional obligation to return to the United States, if you have an urgent need for medical care. So, these are all kind of common sense exemptions where, hey, I was already enrolled in a PhD program in, UNC, can I come back? So these are all ways that we can kind of get around the Muslim ban through waivers. How would you apply for these waivers? When you apply for the visa at the consulate abroad, you would need to submit a waiver application with your visa application. Now, I never ever recommend doing this by yourself. I highly recommend hiring an attorney. And the actual procedure for this, again, we don't know yet, but we hopefully will get some feedback from the Department of State on how we'll be able to file these waivers. Now, I just want to say very quickly, if you are a national of one of the countries, Chad, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, North Korea, or Venezuela, and you don't know if this applies to you or you are foreseeing the application of a visa, please consult an attorney. It's very important that you get specific legal advice on how to kind of navigate this situation. Now, a lot of people say, I wanted to point out before I continue, the reason I feel this ban is the worst is because if you notice, I didn't give any timeline. So this ban is a permanent ban. Muslim Ban 1, Muslim Ban 2, they both had expiration dates. They either were 90 days, 120 days, but for this one, unfortunately, it's indefinite. And that's very scary because there's no way that we can know when this will end, number one. And number two, we unfortunately can foresee additional countries being added. What happened was President Trump had asked countries to reveal their screening processes. And so they said that based on countries who weren't either willing to give the screening processes or didn't have sufficient screening processes, they were going to be added to the ban. And that's highly problematic because it is subjective inquiry. Basically, any country that he feels is not up to par or not cooperating, he's going to add them to the list. So, that's why it's very important that you follow ICNA CSJ, you can follow Yunus law, and keep up to date on what's new in the immigration world. So now what happens next? What do we look for? So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Muslim Ban 2.0 was supposed to be heard by the Supreme Court. Now, because now we have Muslim Ban 3.0, the Supreme Court canceled the hearing. I believe it was scheduled for either today or it was tomorrow. Canceled that hearing, and now they're going to consider whether they need to be hearing a case on the Muslim ban at all, which is really unfortunate. But Muslim advocates and a few other organizations have already filed a legal challenge against Muslim Ban 3.0. So it's called Iranian Alliances Across Borders v. Trump, if you want to look into that. It's basically a group of Iranian Americans who are filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration for violations of their constitutional rights in banning Iranians from entry to the US. And we'll try to send you guys alerts as you know, if additional countries are added or if anything else goes on. You know, we'll try to keep you guys up to date. Like I said, a lot of questions on how to get involved. You know, this does affect a broad spectrum of people, but I know there's a lot of people out there who just want to help. You know, they say, you know, this doesn't affect me directly, but how can I do anything? What do I do to help? What do I do? You know, I'm just sitting around and this is really frustrating me. Now I ask, you know, and it's always great to channel that frustration and channel that, that energy into something positive. So there's a few resources I wanted to give out. Obviously, number one would be ICNA Day. They're a great resource. Again, like I said, they do great work and they're always looking for volunteers. They're always looking for support. They have events, they have webinars, and you can go to their website, follow them on Facebook, and get involved there. Another way to get involved is a website called nomuslimbanever.com. I don't know if some of you may have heard of the hashtag #NoMuslimBanEver. It's basically a movement to have educational seminars and rallies and protests, if you like that kind of thing, on putting resistance against the Muslim ban. You know, unfortunately, we're at 3, you know. We hope this isn't like the iPhone, and we hope we don't end up at Muslim Ban 8.0. So we really need to kind of mobilize and push back on this. And finally, I wanted to point out Penn State law. Obviously, you know, I'm based in Philly, so I'm a little bit biased here, but Penn State law has phenomenal resources on the Muslim ban and what you can do as a, you know, as a citizen of the U.S. and as a concerned citizen. Their immigration law clinic has tons of resources on just, you know, for lay people kind of just wrap their head around what's going on and what can be done. They have a lot of informational sessions as well. So if we want to just move on to the questions. So I got a ton of questions, which is great because that makes me feel that people actually care and they're invested in this. And so I'll go through the questions one by one, and then Ramiz, if there's anything else, then you can chime in and let me know if there's any other questions. So question number 1 from Gashif. He says, as a US citizen, should I have any concerns about traveling abroad to any Middle Eastern country? What precautions should I take? And who should I contact if a problem were to arise? This is a very common question. You know, and understandably so. You know, a lot of people are like, you know, this doesn't directly affect me, but how do I prepare if something does happen at the border? We're hearing horror stories coming out of the airport, so a lot of people are scared. And now what I would say is, number 1, go to my Facebook page, and I have a webinar on how to prepare for travel. And, you know, I try to break down in that webinar what specifically you can do and what your rights are. So what I would say is, as a US citizen, the only concern you need to have about travel is, am I knowledgeable about my rights? So do I know what my rights are about travel and when I'm at the border and if I'm encountered by border and Customs and Border Protection? And number 2, I would say you should be concerned if you're doing anything unlawful and if you're doing anything fraudulent. Unfortunately, I see this very, you know, I don't see it commonly, but I do see it. And so what I would say is, if there's something that you are unsure of about whether it is lawful or may be considered fraudulent, please contact an immigration attorney. And definitely listen to that webinar. I think it'll help you a lot, teach you about what your rights are. And number 2, there's, you know, very importantly on electronic device precautions that you can take when you travel. Other than that, really, as a U.S. citizen, there's really no concern other than make sure that you're following all of CBP's rules when you travel. This ban doesn't affect United States citizens. If you are a U.S. citizen, as I've said before, you have an almost absolute right to enter the United States and to travel abroad. So you should be fine. Now for next question, we have Aisha. She's asking, what is the Muslim ban? I want to be as informed as possible. And what can I do to help politically? So this is a really good question. Obviously, Muslim ban, what is the Muslim ban 3.0? I just went over it. It is the permanent ban of certain immigrants and non-immigrants from 8 countries. Now, I didn't go over this initially, and I just want to touch upon this. A lot of people say, well, this isn't a Muslim ban because we have North Korea and Venezuela on there. Chad is a Muslim majority country. So my response is, a lot of people have gone into this. North Korea has one of the lowest volumes of visa applicants in the world. So I'm going to tell you what there is to know, and then you can make your own conclusion. But North Korea, like I said, has one of the lowest volumes of visa applicants in the world. Number 2, Venezuela is on there. However, only certain government officials applying for certain limited types of visas are being banned. So what does that mean? That means we added a country who most people don't even come here, nor do they want to come here, or can they come here. And number 2, we added another country, but we basically just banned about less than 0.1% of them. So you make your own conclusions about what that means about this being a Muslim ban versus a generic travel ban. Now the third question from Mariam in Sanali is, what can I'm sorry, I didn't answer Aisha's question about what can she do to politically help. I think that's a really good question. She said, do I call Congress? Yes. A lot of people don't realize that congresspersons are required to not only listen to and heed the requests of their constituents, but they also do have to respond. So even if you get a associate or an assistant, that call and will be included in a report that's given to the congressperson, and they do tally the calls. So it's very important that you call your local congresspersons. Now this is a federal matter, so although it's it may have some limited impact to call your state reps, I would say put your effort into calling your federal reps. So your House of Representatives, congresspersons, and your senators, definitely give them a call and just say, I don't support Muslim Ban 3.0, and I don't support the blanket ban of individuals from Muslim majority countries simply because of where they're from and what religion they adhere to. I do have sample language that I'll put in a note to post, and you guys can use that whenever you call your congressperson. Now, Mariam Ansanali says, what can I do as a high schooler in public school to help? Again, great question. So what I do here where I live is I did contact the superintendent of our local schools and also the head of curriculum, and talked about whether I could go and speak to the students and educate them on immigration policy, and surprisingly they agreed. So you'd be surprised how many people are interested, not only interested, but willing to be educated on what's going on out there. So one thing you can do is contact whoever's in charge of bringing on speakers and see if they'd be willing to have someone who's either an immigration expert or someone who's an expert in policy to discuss, what the Muslim ban is and what its impact is on the Muslim community. You can also start maybe your own organization or your own movement in your town to push back on the narrative of hate against Muslims. This is something I constantly echo throughout my talks, is pushing back on the narrative of fear and the narrative of hate. And how we can do that is really kind of engage each other and get to know one another. That's very important. So how do you do that in a high school setting? Create an organization, get to know, and make it open to all religions, all faiths, all people from. We tend to have like the Latino Student Association and the Muslim Student Association, and what that does is it creates pockets of ethnicities and religions, which is has its own benefit, but it's not beneficial here. So what I would say is get those organizations to come together and have open dialogue. You can have other students talk about what do they feel about the Muslim ban. And that type of dialogue can really break down barriers that people have often unintentionally created. Sayeda Khan says, can Pakistani nationals holding green cards travel to, I don't know if that was spelled correctly, so I'm just gonna say travel anywhere and back. So like I said, green card holders are exempt from Muslim Ban 3.0. So yes, even if you're a Pakistani national or if you're a national from any country, even the ones banned, so even a Yemeni who's a green card holder can come to the United States and travel in and out. So Tariq Mahmoud asks, I'm a US citizen and a Muslim. This is kind of the same question. Well, he says, will I face harassment as I return? I just want to touch upon this because initially, when we had Muslim Ban 1.0, we had a lot of reports of harassment and interrogation at the border. It has subsided some, and I want to credit that hopefully to more individuals becoming knowledgeable about their rights, and also hopefully pushing back on the narrative of fear is transforming the culture of these officers, hopefully. So, but I would still say if you do, hopefully you won't face harassment, but if you do, definitely report that. Take down the badge number and the ID number of the officer who's harassing you, and definitely take action. You can contact ICNA CSJ and they can lead you in the right direction. You can contact myself and we can either definitely report that officer, which is very important to prevent future harassment. And number two, you may even have a legal challenge. Okay. Okay, great question. Kamal Ahmed asks, how do Muslims protect themselves at work, and does this affect our workplace? The reason I say this is a great question is because it's broadly affects a broad range of individuals. So the Muslim ban directly won't affect your workplace, even if you have a work visa and you're operating, working on a work permit, and you're from one of the banned countries. You still should be fine and shouldn't encounter anything at work. I want to point out that if employers are allowed and they're actually obligated to check your work authorization when you start working. But if now, let's say you're a Libyan national or you're a national of one of the banned countries, and all of a sudden he's asking for your work authorization again, and you encounter some type of pushback from your employer, that is discrimination. So I don't want you or anyone else who is a national of one of these countries to encounter any type of harassment or pushback or negative ramifications at work, even so much as asking for your work authorization again when they already have a copy of your valid work authorization is and can be considered discrimination on the basis of national origin. So please, like I said, be aware of your rights. I do a lot of, maybe that's another one we can do later on, is workplace immigration rights. Because it's something that I'm seeing more and more common nowadays, is individuals being subjected, demoted, or their immigration status being made public somehow in the office, or and all of this, or being called into your boss's office and him saying, well, this Muslim ban came out, and you're, I know you're from Libya. I think it might be best if you go. And this stuff is real, and this stuff happens, and it's illegal. So please be be knowledgeable of what your rights are in the workplace, especially as immigrants, you do have rights in the workplace. Okay, so Hatem Abu, this is a technical question. I am Syrian, married to a Syrian American, and my I-485, that's a green card application, is still pending for 2 years now. Would traveling outside of the U.S. On advanced parole be risky with the new travel ban? So I'm going to try to make this apply to more than just Hatem. So when you apply for adjustment of status, when you apply for a green card, you can also apply for basically a travel document. It's also called advanced parole while your green card application is processing. So what he's asking is, he's a Syrian national. So as I said before, he's, unfortunately, Syrians are subjected to a permanent and indiscriminatory ban. So all immigrant applicants and all non-immigrant applicants. But if you're paying attention, he's not subject to the ban because he's already in the United States. Okay, so anyone who's in the United States as of the date of the effective date and has a valid visa, they're exempted from the ban. So this particular individual would not be subject to the ban. So can he apply for a travel document while his green card is processing? Yes. Should he travel on that travel document? If it's granted and he has a valid reason for leaving the United States, I would say go ahead. Now, what I tell my clients who have a green card application pending and they want to travel outside the United States, I always tell them there's a risk, because if the green card application is denied, then they may not be allowed to re-enter. But it has to be denied while they're outside the US. So if they're outside the US and the green card application is denied, they may not be allowed to re-enter. However, if they come back and it's still pending, they're okay. If it's approved, they come back, they're still okay. So I always say assess the risk there. If it's really important for you to leave the US, go ahead. Ban itself won't apply in this situation. Great question from Muhammad. What does the new law say about beneficiaries from the banned countries who already have an appointment to receive their immigrant visa? Okay, so this is someone who's applied for the visa and they have an appointment for their visa, but they actually haven't gone to the appointment yet. Unfortunately, this is so sad, but if you haven't received the visa yet as of the effective date, and you are a national of one of the banned countries, it's likely you won't be given the visa at your appointment. And it may be that your appointment is canceled. If your appointment is not canceled, I would say if you have enough time, contact an immigration attorney and we can see if you're eligible for one of the waivers. And see if even maybe you're exempt for some reason. But unfortunately, if you've applied for the visa but you don't have it in hand yet as of the effective date, the ban does apply to you. So contact an attorney and see if a waiver applies. We know that Sudan was taken out of the list. How long could the indefinite period last for the banned countries such as Yemen? Yemen will most likely not have a stable government for a long time. Could this mean an end to immigration from such countries? Unfortunately, yes. And that's why I think this is a really, this is a time to wake up. Entire countries are being banned from entering the United States. And this is the most egregious ban of a class of people based on their race and religion in the history of the United States, really. So I would say, yes, Sudan is taken out, and for now, yes, the period is indefinite. Can a U.S. citizen petition for an immediate relative in Yemen before the exemption period ends October 18th? You can file the petition, but if you're familiar with the immigration process, the petition is just establishing the family relationship. It's not applying for the actual visa. So you can, and the petition will be processed as of right now, USCIS has not said that they won't process petitions. So the petition will likely be processed unless we get some other directive from USCIS. And then, but unfortunately, even if petition's approved, the family member from Yemen will not be able to apply for the visa. So you make the decision on whether that makes sense or not. I would say contact an immigration attorney and see if that makes sense in your situation. But even if you have an approved petition, this is for anyone, even if you have an approved petition for a family member from one of these banned countries, that's different than having a visa in hand as of the effective date. Okay, I'm going to say that again. If you have an approved petition, mean that that's a visa that was issued. Okay, the visa is very different than that. Is there any other close family members exempted, or will another one replace the existing one? So unfortunately, there were no exemptions for groups of family members. We do have obviously the bona fide family relationship exception, but that only applies for Muslim Ban 2.0. So as of October 18th, the bona fide relationship doesn't matter. So regardless of whether someone has a bona fide relationship with, regardless if someone's a family member or has, an employment contract with someone in the US, it doesn't matter anymore as of Muslim Ban 3.0. So that's it. It was beneficial to you guys, and now I'll kick it off back to Ramiz.
Thank you so much, Afia. That was great. A lot of wonderful information, and you did a wonderful job of comparing the previous bans. And I think you answered the questions very well and thoroughly. I think people will benefit a lot from it. Questions. I think I sent you some questions on my end as well, and you answered them thoroughly as well. Thank you again for coming and doing this webinar with us. And hopefully people will benefit from it just as they have the previous webinars. All of them, by the way, are on our website, including the one about how to prepare for travel. I think that's on our website as well. So please follow icnacsa.org. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and we have a YouTube page dedicated to these videos as well. So we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.